Beautiful. Alrighty, guys. Well, welcome back here to another episode of the Brotherhood podcast, and I'm joined by my brother Ryan McCarthy here, who is a master and an advocate in all things mental health, mindset, mission. Has an awesome journey of overcoming drug addiction, moving over from overseas, and is amazing and a beautiful example for all around him. So, bro, really grateful to have you on the podcast here today.
Hey, cheers, bro. Thanks for that introduction. That was very heartfelt. But no, thank you for having me. Likewise, I love everything that you do, the impact that you're doing, the connections you make with other men in the space too. Like, it's really admirable. So thank you as well.
Thank you, bro. Oh man, that's beautiful. And yeah, I suppose I'd love to start off and ask you, bro. Normally I'll ask like deeper into your story from the get-go, but I want to kind of go on a different route here today. And I suppose your story will definitely come up. But I suppose, what is something that's really, I would say, you're personally working through at the moment that is you feel is in alignment with how you're serving or how you will serve in the future?
Do you mean more so of like a challenge I'm going through, or so? Yeah.
Whatever's true to you, whatever comes to mind, bro.
One thing that I identified that I was going through, because every week, I do it every day, but every week I have a big analysis of trying to create more conscious thinking into my current behaviors and patterns. So one thing I started to realize is that humans, when they have a potential and they're starting to get to a point where they're feeling that potential, they start unconsciously implementing self-sabotaging behaviors to then have a reason to why they never feel their potential. Somewhat it can be an excuse. And then I saw myself slowly implementing self-sabotaging behaviors, which I wasn't consciously doing. But then once I consciously became aware of it, I was able to stop those behaviors and stick back on my path, which is creating this value and everything else that I'm doing in this mental health space. So I think when you asked that question, that related with me a lot, because that was a recent reflection that I had. And I was glad that I identified that, because now I've got like a personal understanding of that experience. So when I speak to other people who are trying to push towards their potential in life, and then they start doing behaviors that are going to sabotage that, like I have a lot more of an understanding now on why that is, and also how I can help people get out of that.
That's beautiful, bro. And I've actually never thought of it that way, and I actually haven't been aware of that. So that actually makes a lot of sense, because yeah, that's so interesting. And I'd love to delve into that a bit more, because I can even see in myself, there's like almost when there's not a challenge, when it gets to a certain point where like it's like, okay, cool, I've overcome that challenge. It's like a part of me is always seeking for like the next thing, like the next challenge. And I think without conscious awareness, we can seek challenges also in unhealthy ways. We might be like,
it's like that gap in between, like once you've already accomplished something and when you're trying to accomplish the next thing, or you're trying to find what the next thing is, that part in the middle can feel lonely. I don't mean lonely in terms of like an external environment. It can feel lonely in terms of like a man on this mission. So you start implementing things that you get confused and conflicted about, that you might push yourself in the wrong direction. Sometimes you may push yourself in the right direction, but it's all about being conscious in that part where you're in between accomplishing a mission and going to a next one.
Yeah, so true, man. So true. And I really loved, and even talking on mission, because I think I seen you post on a question, what was your favorite book? And yours was The Way of the Superior Man by David Dida, which is one of my favorite books. What was your biggest takeaways from that book? And I suppose, like even touching base, because let's say majority of the people listen to this will be males, right? And it's great even for females listening to this, gauge a greater understanding of I guess the masculine essence within us all. But what were your key takeaways from that book, and how have you applied that to your life?
Well, initially when I first listened to that book, it was like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. You probably see Nipsey Hussle in the background. He was the one who said that book on the podcast once, and I was like, I gotta listen to it. So I listened to that book, and at the time I was in a space where I was not long out of a relationship, and there was quite a toxic relationship. And I was in my mindset it was just all over the place. And I was like, I'm gonna stay single till I'm 30. I'm gonna be this certain type of person because F the world and all this. And I didn't realize like it's because I was broken on the inside. Like there was something that I wasn't working on, and that was a mission in life. And once I listened to that book, I realized that if I implement a mission into my life, I'll then implement drive. Then that'll give me direction. And then when I have direction, my mind's more clear. And then obviously down the road, I'll figure out more about myself and learn more about myself. And then once I was working through that and working on all my own stuff, I started seeing the world as like a different view, like especially in terms of like females and what I want from a female as well. And also being able to accept that I have feminine energy within myself. Because before I listened to that book, I thought just macho, masculine men, you know, I had to go and do. But that book made me realize that I have to touch into that flame side of me as well. And that's okay too. And then I know I'm going on loads of different tangents here of different things this book gave me.
Brian.
But another one is like, when I said I wanted to be single till I'm 30, when I listened to this book, I was like 19. And it helped me identify what I wanted in a woman. And then what I identified in my mind would be the perfect fit for myself. I ended up meeting her not long after that, which is my now fiance.
Yeah.
So that book gave me a lot of teachings as well, even in my relationship now, because sometimes I look at my relationship and I think it's kind of unbelievable how good it is. But then I realize it's because I don't put any blame onto my partner. I don't judge her for anything, like anything she does. And if I ever feel a trigger from that, it's because there's something within me that's unhealed. So I always bring the attention back within myself. And I believe not just it keeps a relationship healthy, but it keeps me healthy, because anytime I feel a trigger, not even from a partner, but just in life in general, I'm always bringing the internal thinking, how can I work on that to get the best out of this situation for myself? Because if we're constantly triggered by the external world, we're never going to be able to get to a point where we're calm with the external world. We're always going to be in a reactive state. So once you bring the focus internally and be like, cool, if I work on this now, it may take a week, it may take 6 months, but as long as I work on it and get through it, I won't be triggered by this certain thing in life anymore. And that's just how I've been going about life since I listened to that book.
Man, that's beautiful. And yeah, it's so true, because there's a, you know, what that reminds me of is I remember I had Cohen Way talk about this, but he's like, you point the finger and there's always 3 pointing back.
Yeah.
You know, and I love that, because it's like it you know, I think it comes back to also, like, when it comes back to those triggers, is know everything that happened to you. And I know you talk about this a lot because I've seen so many videos. Know everything that happened to you isn't your fault, but the healing of it is your responsibility.
Yeah,
definitely. And how you shift your mindset around that. So would you say that that really assisted in shifting you from like a victim mentality to then like empowered creator?
Yeah, it made me realize I need to take ownership.
Yeah.
And then from that book onwards, I just got so invested in personal development, not just money, but energy wise, time wise. Like I was just listening to as much as I could, reading as much as I could, and I just become obsessive about learning more about myself, because that book was like a big eye opener. Because before that, I was like, you know, I was a victim of the world, you know, like F everyone else because they're doing me wrong. But then it made me realize, like, oh, if I work on myself more, I'm less affected by the noise that's happening out here.
Yeah.
Like it's like, you know, you're at a workshop and you put earplugs in so you can't hear the saw so loud, so you're not damaging your ears. It's a bit like that, but over time you're going to get yourself to a better state.
Yeah, beautiful, Barry. I love that. I love that. And I suppose I'd love to delve into a bit, because I think especially, you know, even within Brotherhood, we talk about how there is so needed today, and there's a lot of spaces coming into even more bringing, let's say, a guided rite of passage or initiation or proper transition into manhood. And I suppose there's a lot of dudes, like as you say, who get caught up, and I know I did, because it was like on the soccer field, and I know you resonate, on the soccer field I was let's say the more macho type, like just all about, you know, mentally winning over people and competitiveness and aggression. But then when it came to life, I didn't quite harness that. I was more kind and more of a nice guy there. And one of the quotes I loved the most in The Way of the True Man is, he said, there's either the guy who's all spine and no heart, or all heart and no spine. And the book talks about, well, it's about marrying heart and a spine within a man.
Yeah.
So that transition from, say, for example, when you're trying to discover out who you are, what's your place in the world, what does it mean to be a man, more importantly, what does it mean to be a man to you as an individual? That period of time, as you're saying, you went through a breakup, and then you read this book, and you started to be more empowered, and you started to look inwards and start to shift that dynamic and really grow yourself. Like, how pivotal is that point? And I suppose, what were the struggles before that led you to that point where you started to shift?
So the struggles building up to that, and why I had that old mindset about a man, was because for people that don't know, I moved from Liverpool, England, to Australia. And when you move to a different country when you're young, like all your family's still back at home, like dad, mom, and all that come. But then, not like within a year of moving to Queensland, like dad moved back to UK, and my brother moved away, sister moved away. So basically, it was just me and mum growing up from like the age 10 years old. So then I basically had to teach myself things. Like I remember the first time, like when I got a job as a tradie and I shook someone's hand, like the boss's hand, and he looked at me, he goes, "What type of shake is that?" Like I didn't know, like you had to do a firm grip, or like little things like changing the tire, or just little things like that. So it took me on the path of a lot of self-destruction, and a lot of anger, and drug addiction. And it just put me on the path of just destruction. And then my whole idea of being a man, and I think this goes back to environment that I grew up in as well. Like to be respected, you got to be tough, you got to be hard, you got to do bad things. That's the only way to get respect. And I had that mindset for so long, probably up until the age of 19, when I listened to that book. So I used to always think, oh, someone says something wrong by you, you got to act on it. But I didn't realize that until I listened to that book, that becoming a man is taking responsibility and ownership of your life, and then also adding good leadership skills to your own life, so you can actually lead and guide yourself through any situation you're faced with in an appropriate sense, and being more responsive for your life. So I believe that shift and then implementing those things afterwards is what helped me bring that shift into my life.
Yeah, that's beautiful, bro. Love that. And I suppose I'd love to ask even a little bit deeper, because it is so interesting, isn't it? Because I remember even growing up, it was like, even say to attract women or whatever, there was the stereotype of like the bad boy or whatever. And it's like, fuck, do I have to become that to gain attraction, or even to get the things that I want? And was it for you, like, how was that shift of environment? Was it like a slow process, a slow transition? Did it take many years for you to shift from that state of being in that environment to the state you're in now, which is obviously empowered and you're surrounded by people who are also on the same path? Like, what was that transition like for yourself?
The main shift was probably when I quit drugs. So when I quit drugs, and then being able to try and detach from certain environments, then go into new environments. And the hardest thing that I found at that time was, at the time I was dealing with social anxiety. So I was struggling to get myself in new environments. So I ended up back in the old ones. But the biggest thing was like just getting into new places and meeting new people. And the more I did that, I started building connections. And I started building connections, like an example, if I go to like Cool to Be Conscious, I'll meet someone from there. And I'm like, oh, cool. Now I can go to this event and meet these people and hang out with these people. And it's become like a massive evolving thing by constantly putting myself out there to different groups and different interests that I had, without letting the fear of judgment get involved.
Yeah. It's so true. Like that's one of the best things I talk about, when I was first transitioning as well. And really resonate with what you're saying, because, when I was first transitioning, I remember even when we leave school, there's still reminiscence of the school mentality, and because we're tribal by nature. Right. And that like there's a psychological phenomenon called the Pygmalion effect. And it talks about how, like, literally the expectations of your peers or your group directly affects what you expect of yourself, and then also how you show up within your space around you, right? So naturally, if someone has like higher expectations of you, they'll go extra lengths to support you, which will then you feel greater belief in yourself because someone else sees it in you. And you also rise to the higher expectations. You feel the need to rise to higher expectations, which then increases with greater performance or whatever, you know what I mean? So within team dynamics, but then the same thing goes in, like we can say, in a negative way, you know, is that, you know, if the expectations are that you do a certain thing to be respected, you know, as you were saying, then you'll naturally rise to those standards because you don't know any better, you know. And you know, the fear of rejection is so deep in who we are, because in ancient times, you know, when we were part of a tribe, if you acted differently to the tribe, you would be casted out, which meant rejection, and also meant that you'd be casted out on your own, which also meant higher risk of dying. Because you're alone. So, like, as much as we can say, yeah, look, we've evolved a lot, 100% since the ancient times, but there's so many deep intrinsic habits or conditioned, let's say, like unconscious parts of who we are, and within every human, that still run a lot of our actions today, because that was how we survived, you know. So school very much is one of those tribal spaces, or we can be part of that tribal mindset. Now, obviously, when we leave school, it can be an extremely difficult time, and I know I found that like as I was stepping more forward in my mission, I felt the intense anxiety because I had a certain identity that was formed of how I show up there, and then the feeling of showing up different as actually who I actually am. That this identity was like, no, that's not safe. That's not fucking safe. You're gonna like, you know, and having to break through that. And I suppose it took me a long time to find my tribe after that. Now I'm very grateful, and I'm grateful I went through that. But I definitely say reiterate what you were saying too, man. Because from my perspective, I think if you can find a tribe that is somewhere we want to be, and make it a slow transition where you're like you're surrounded by people who are living like you want to live, so then it makes it okay for you to show up in that way, and it becomes the norm because you're seeing other people do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I was very fortunate, like when I quit drugs too, because my whole friend group, everyone that I knew that I did it with, they were so supportive of me quitting, even though they were still doing it every day. Like they didn't, like, I remember like when I first quit, like there's people like racking coke on the bench, and then some random come in and offered me a line. And like my mate looked at them and said, "Don't offer him that shit again." Like stood up for me. I was like, I could have said it myself, but like just that's how supportive my friends were
That's beautiful.
in that transition. Like they were just proud that I was taking those steps and trying to change my life. So that really did help, especially that gradual transition and finding new people too. And I still hold a very utmost respect to all the people in my life in the past and present as well.
That's beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
I love that, man. And I suppose now with your mission, so we were talking about like the formation of mission, like what is your mission right now, and why do you feel so passionate about it?
My mission is to, a very generic answer would be to help the world.
Yeah, of
But
course, man.
a bit more detailed would be to end suffering of depression, anxiety for the people that feel it. Because I know in times, especially with depression, we can feel like we're never going to get out of it. And in times of anxiety, we can feel like we're never going to survive it. So I want to give people hope in both of them, and then also give them the tools, tips, and strategies, and actually work with them to overcome that and try and make that impact globally as I can. And also with suicide's a big thing with me. I've done a lot of training in it because I want to make sure I'm as equipped as possible when it comes to helping people with suicide prevention and intervention and things like that. So a big goal of mine is to, over my lifespan, to hopefully get the percentage of suicide down.
I love that, man. It's most certainly needed, especially in these times, you know, because people, you know, we're in a space where we've never been more connected in terms of, like, let's say surface level connected, but void of the deeper and below surface level connection. So, man, so needed. So from my perspective, bro, I honor you for stepping forward, because it takes a certain individual to do so, and I don't say that lightly.
Yeah, and like to answer this, cheers for that, bro. And to answer the first part of that question, you said my why. My why is because like being addicted to drugs from age 11 till 18 and overcoming that. And then on top of that, because once I quit drugs, like that's when all depression, anxiety, a lot of mental illness came into my life, because for so long I suppressed it. Like I never dealt, I was just numb for like those years of my life. So from 18 to 20 was just constant battle with suicide ideation and planning and things like that. And then when I turned 20 and overcome all those thoughts and emotions and everything that I was facing, that's when my mission just became 100% serious, and I haven't looked back since.
It's like that saying, the wound is where the light enters.
Exactly. And the thing is too, like if you do have a story like that or whatever your story is, you got to find the way to be empowered by it, because we've all got a story, and we can rather dwell and get caught up in it. And I understand trauma is very complex, so you got to find your ways to cope, but try and find some empowerment through it and use that as a tool to be able to help other people.
Yeah. So true, man. Like I look at, even for myself, Brotherhood was formed into fucking when I was feeling all of my stuff, and coming out the other end of the trauma and actually confronting it. And it's so interesting. You find similar stories, even with what you're saying there, that it's when you actually finally decided to feel and confront what was really going on for you, and to find the solutions. And it's in those trials that you seek the solutions, that offers enough pain to put fire up your ass to find the solutions. And then by finding the solutions and healing, you then have something to give, which is our greatest gift.
100%. And when you're in those mind states as well, like let's just say anxiety for an example, like I would have moments where my best mate would come to my house just to say hello. I'll be in my room shaking. I wouldn't be able to leave the room to say hello to my best mate. And at that moment in my life, I thought I was done. Like, I'm like, there's no way out of this. Like, like at that time, I would say, like, this is what the time of me would say is like, I'm fucked up. I got no way out. Like, this is too painful. I can't see a different way of life. But not giving up and showing up for myself every day since then. And it's only been 4 years, and seeing the massive shift within myself just gives me hope that anyone else in the world who is in that exact moment I was in, where you're completely shaken in your room because you can't speak to your best mate, to get into a point where you're running events, you're doing podcasts, you're doing a lot of stuff in group settings and social settings. Like, it really is possible, as long as you dedicate and give yourself some time to actually put in the healing for yourself.
Yeah, it starts with you, doesn't it? And it starts with being the mentor or the parent figure for yourself in those situations.
Yeah, I had to like 100%. I have to take accountability. And when people ask me like, who's your inspiration, besides saying Steven Gerrard, besides
Timmy Cahill for the win. Come on.
Yakubu. No.
Yeah.
Besides Stevie G, I always say myself, like, in times of struggle, honestly, when I feel like I'm struggling or I find a challenge, I always look at myself in the mirror and like, you've overcome worse. I'm like, and like, not saying this egotistically, but
no.
I use myself as a vessel to keep going.
Yeah. Well, you got to, bro, don't you? It's like at those moments you find, like, even in looking at, right, because we obviously grew up loving football. Like Ryan is a Liverpool fan and I'm an Everton fan, and they're actually like total rivals. But my shades red, my shades hello. But see, even like, we look at that, right? If you were to go too deep into that, look, to be fair, there's a lot of families who are similar, but there's a lot of those fans who hate each other, and and even us chatting on here and we're joking about it, like, that goes to show there's a other side to it. It's not as serious as some people make it out to be,
like,
right?
Two of my closest mates support Man United, and when I tell my dad that, he looks at me in disgust. He's like, what are you doing speaking to these people? But it's like, you get to a point where it's just like, you grow and evolve, and You know, like I don't like the football team, but I don't hate them for it.
Yeah, that's it. I know. And it's like my dad won't get anything red.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking, he won't. Like, you'll never get a red car or a
Is
red
he a
top
blue nose as well?
yeah, he is. Well, I mean, man, he was over in Ireland and he supported them since he was a kid, So like he was in the days supporting Everton in the 80s when they won the titles, and he'd be going over to the games, and he's gone to many, and I remember him telling me stories of him in his room with because they'd only have the radio then when he was young. So
yeah.
he said it was horrible because the commentator would like start screaming and you'd think like a fucking goal would be going in, but it'd be like, and then he put it wide and this like you couldn't even see it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to go to Goodison when I was a kid too, because some of my family used to go. And I used to go to Goodison a lot when I was a kid in Liverpool. Back in the Tommy Gravison days.
Yeah, Thomas Gravison.
Yeah. I remember one time I was like, Goodison. I'm like, I yelled something out to him just for banter, and he turned around and started screaming at me, completely shit myself. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, he's not someone you'd want to get on the bad side.
I learned me lesson.
Yeah. But like even looking at say like the football aspect and where I was going with that, like one of the things I'm very grateful for, and a lot of Brotherhood is inspired by my years playing football, and I was blessed enough to have my dad as a coach, and said this story multiple times, but one thing I'm very grateful for that my dad instilled in me, and I suppose even watching the football, and I'm sure you resonate, is that like fire in the belly, like that will to not lose, or it's like the comeback, the story of the comebacks, and you see it time and time again. I get goosebumps thinking about it because like my dad taught me to go out there and like fight for every ball, and then I even think about my Irish roots as well, and how that they're well known for like the fighting Irish, and then the same in Liverpool, like they're working class people who fight for their lives, for everything, and are brought up on that spirit, and you see that in the fans, like Liverpool and Everton have some of the best fans in the Premier League, and the sayings like "you'll never walk alone." And I joke and say, well, I'd rather walk alone if I support Liverpool.
I can sing it if you want.
No, but in all seriousness, you know what I mean? I think there's a certain aspect of that. And I really resonate with what you're saying, is that it's like you looking in your eyes and saying, like igniting that spark within you. It's that will to go on. It's that will to find the way. It's that will to put your head in, when the ball's coming in, and to fight that extra inch for your teammate. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Like I may be biased saying this, but like I feel like people from Liverpool are the most passionate people I've met, and like I feel like that's where a lot of it comes from me, is that passion, that drive, that never giving up mentality. Because I feel like just like always against the odds, and no matter what, still showing up and smashing the odds out of the way, and just showing that you can win no matter what. And that's why, like, I watch Liverpool. It'll be 3 a.m, 10 a.m, doesn't matter. I'm up screaming the house down, singing "You Never Walk Alone," week in, week out. Like I still watch like Liverpool versus Barca when we're 3-0 down and 1-4-0. I watch that like once a week and nearly cry every time I watch it. It's like it just empowers me to be like, if they can overcome that, like I can overcome anything else. And then it's just a very powerful thing how much influence football, or more so Liverpool, has in my life.
Yeah. So true, man. And I really resonate with that, with the, Everton versus Crystal Palace, like that, and the fans running on the pitch, and obviously it's completely the other side of the table, unfortunately. But it's the same, it's similar in ways, it's the same city.
Gives you the same feeling as well.
Yeah, it's the same feeling, man. Like it is that will, someone even like, Duncan Ferguson, who's like a symbol of that fire, and like the dude has a tattoo like on his arm, and when he was managing them, like he still wears the armband of when he was playing, and the watch that one of the Howard Kendall, who was a famous manager, gave to him. The watch is broken, it doesn't work, but he wears it as like a symbol, like little things like that, that's different. It's it's like it ties into very tribal natures, and
it
I
does.
suppose it's that spirit. I think it's something hard it's very hard to explain. Like my mentor calls it, well, inspiritus, which is like Greek word to be inspired, to be in spirit, which means to be in your soul's mission.
And that's the thing, like people like to me, you're so crazy about football. I'm like, it's not the football. Like I love football, but it's the city, it's Liverpool. Like every time I watch Liverpool, like I'm watching my people fight every week. And it's just, I think that's like a tribalism thing behind it too. And also like Steven Gerrard, the reason why he's my biggest inspiration in life, he's from like 2 streets away from where I lived. Like he's from the same estate in Liverpool, but also the fact like he come in at a time where our club went to shit. And no matter what, he didn't give up. He didn't leave. He just put his boots on week in, week out, and played every single game, every season until he ended up retiring over in LA. But just that whole mentality and never giving up on your people, no matter how tough it gets, and always fighting for what you believe in. And there's a lot of passion and drive that comes from me just because of Liverpool.
Yeah. Football's a beautiful game.
Oh, it is, like,
isn't it?
Premier League's back on the 6th of August, 9 p.m. Liverpool playing Fulham. I can't wait.
But with us and Chelsea, I must admit, I'm a little bit anxious about this season, but
surely Super Frank can do something.
Yeah, he's hoping. I know. Yeah, he's hoping. But that's it. It's like in the dark times, in both the good and the dark times, you follow your team. To the end, and I feel like as you're saying, there's like that loyalty, and it's like in the both the good and the dark times, it's the polarity, it's the complete polarity of teams in the same city, and with the same passion but at different ends of the table. And I suppose that is so symbolic for life, that no matter which end of the scale you are, or where you are, knowing that it will fluctuate, but that passion still remains. And I suppose finding that for each individual, finding what is that thing like that will make you, as you say, man, like that drive, to help people and to bring people out of the situation, or assist in bringing people out of the situation that you were once in.
And that's the good thing about things like Brotherhood as well, like creating communities that you can bring that feeling into, and share that with other people, and adds value and shed that light. Like that type of stuff is possible, like it being in communities where there's loads of passion and drive and belief and support as well.
So true, man. And I suppose that community, and having that community around is so powerful, because one of the things that obviously the biggest things that comes down to a lot of addictions, or a lot of struggles with mental illness, is relationship issues. And then obviously, as you know, like our first relationship with ourselves, and I've obviously trained in psychotherapy, and we look at this a lot, and it always comes down to 99.9% of the time is self-love. And like things like drugs and stuff is ways of trying to find nurturing, because didn't have that nurturing. And you may know a little bit more about that than me, but even then, really finding those communities that can hold you and support you, in those times when you really, really need, because we need that. We're built to be tribes and communities.
Yeah, 100%. Because when I was addicted to drugs, like the community aspect of it, like was amazing for me, because every single day I'm with a group of people who are doing the same thing, but at the same time, like even though they were going through their own things, like they're still showing like love and respect and like their way, even though they were hurting too. There was a good way. Like it may have been trauma bonding to a sense, but at the time it was good, until it got to a point where it wasn't good. Then I had to try and grow and evolve into new things in life. And then one of the struggles I found after that was the whole big idea of the word purpose. I thought the word purpose was like this big magical unicorn. You got to figure out your life purpose, until I realized that the purpose of life is just to live a life of love. Be fulfilled and find what fulfills you. It doesn't mean anything. It literally just do what fulfills you, and that's a purposeful life.
Yeah. It's really keeping it simple, stupid.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like I could say my purpose in life is mental health, but to be honest, my purpose in life is just to remain happy on my journey, no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah. And really to enjoy every step. And I love that you're bringing up that topic because, you know, especially when you're in those moments, it can feel like such a mammoth or like a mountain that you have to climb to get to, you know, wherever. And I know I've definitely felt that at times. And even I still feel that at times too, because, you know, we're always projecting ourselves to be, you know, with our goals and stuff to get to a certain point. But, you know, as you said there, man, like really enjoying the journey and enjoying every step along the way and knowing that it takes, you know, just one step at a time.
Yeah, and it's like if you put such a big emphasis on purpose, let's just say an example, my purpose is to build houses. And then one day I don't want to build houses anymore. Then you get so conflicted about your purpose.
Yeah.
Just keep your purpose simple, but your mission can change. That's okay. So keep your purpose simple and your mission can change. And that's why I always say it's my mission in life and not my purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. And you know, that it's really, man, you're spitting flames here because you know, I've been learning that with Cohen Ray. He has this thing called the strategic planning method, all right, which is you start off with your purpose, your mission, then you go to like your annual priorities and whatever, and everything's always tying back to your purpose and mission. But you know, it was interesting for a while there. I definitely felt that like I was feeling that brotherhood was my purpose, but brotherhood's my mission right now. But my purpose is to serve others. Right. So my purpose is to serve others. So then that purpose breeds so much, you know, like I can, you know, that allows me leeway to have multiple different missions within serving others.
Gives you freedom.
Yeah, it gives me freedom.
Like the purpose is the root of the tree, and the tree can have many branches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have multiple missions, and then different times in your life, you're going to stop one mission, do a new mission, or you're going to grow a mission or collab a mission. That's completely fine too, just long as your purpose remains intact. Just identify what your purpose is. I know for me, it's just fulfillment and love.
Yeah. Amen, bro.
Amen.
Amen. And I'd love to ask you a few before we start to finalize up here because, man, time has flown. Like we've been like I think almost like 50 minutes. So what would be, you know, I know you were talking about tools and tools that you've learned. So say, for example, there's someone listening to this, or even, you know, they've come out the other end of a very challenging time, but they still want some extra tools. Like what are some tools that you've found that really, really help with anxiety, depression, or just really struggling with that mindset aspect of life?
The first thing I say to people, because when we do things, it can feel like an expense, but instead it's an investment when we're getting value from something. If something gives us value back, it's an investment. So one thing I say to people is invest in yourself. And that doesn't mean financially. It can be financially, it can be emotionally, it can be energy, it can be time, whatever it is. Just invest some part of you into a healthy habit that's going to give you value in return. So something like invest into exercise, invest into more healthy and conscious eating, invest into meditation, breath work, morning routines, like little things like making your bed and drinking more water. So the biggest thing I can say to people is invest in yourself. That's going to give you value in return.
Yeah. Best investment is in yourself.
100%. And some of the biggest investments I've made has not even been money. Like I've invested quite a bit of money in myself, but the biggest thing I've invested in myself is time. Like I've respected myself to give myself time to go and do things. And in saying that, in those moments of time that I've invested in myself, it's been uncomfortable as shit in the moment, but the value I've returned, that has returned back within me, has grown me. And then I'm not so uncomfortable in that certain situation in life. Then I've got more energy to then implement more investment, which is given time. And it's a really good cycle. So just find a way to keep investing in yourself, whether it's time, money, energy, or emotional as well.
Love it. Love it. And that really just starts with just one simple habit and one
simple
change at a time, doesn't it?
It does. Because when I've overcome drug addiction and I was battling major depression and severe anxiety, the first step that I took was walking into a gym. And the day I walked into the gym, I was 61 kilos and I couldn't even bench the stick. And I told myself, I was like, why am I here? I'm embarrassing myself. But I just told myself, like, look, just show up every day and just see where it takes you. And then a few years later, I went from 61 kilos benching a stick to 118 kilos to benching 170 kilos. So
Yeah.
like, you got to start somewhere, and wherever
Yeah.
you start is not bad. You got to start somewhere, no matter what
Yeah.
it is. But you will
That's it.
get to wherever you want to get to in life. It's just all about starting. And then once you start, it's just about showing up.
That's it, bro. And like relinquishing the like, no, just knowing like you're gonna look like a fool in the beginning, you know, like, you know, there's so many times. I remember the first time I went to go and do a Facebook Live. Like now, like speaking in front of people or whatever, it doesn't really phase me because I've trained it over and over and over and over and over again, you know. And look, when it comes to bigger crowds, I've still got to, you know, train on that. But you know, it's like I remember the first time I did Facebook Live, I remember my hand was like you know, like that. And you know, and it's like that. You have to train yourself, and that's it. It's that consistency and showing up.
It is. It's just literally showing up, because if anyone listens to my podcast, the first ever episode, like I am stuttering, I'm freaking out, like I'm so what's the word? Not camera shy, just like stage fright. I got massive stage fright in the moment. You can hear it bad for like the first like 3 or 4 episodes, but then keep showing up, keep being consistent, and you get to a point where you don't even think about the cameras or the microphones or anything else around, because you just done it so many times, it becomes a new normal.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, bro. Yeah, you've ingrained that in your subconscious. And I'd love to touch base on, because this has been very true for me in the last year, and that is self-care. And I suppose for me, you know, so within Brotherhood, we attract obviously a lot of high performing dudes. You know, it's the dudes who are committed to, like me and you, committed to growing, committed to showing up as the best version of ourselves, committed to living life on mission, and they're usually entrepreneurial mindset. And you know, for me, last year I burnt out, I would say probably about 4 times. Right. And I had a lot of growth in my business, which was awesome, but I burnt out. And then this year I caught myself just a couple of weeks ago, just before I was about to burn out. And it's really reiterated to me. And it's so funny within my training, you know, my psychotherapy training, like first module 1 is self-care. You know, and it's so true. And but we can get caught in the mindset of having to constantly be on the go, and especially with that spirit, especially with that drive, we can feel like, oh well, we need to constantly be on the go. But I know for me how important it's been to take that time to refill my cup, because I'm not actually serving anyone if I'm not serving myself first, because I'm just pouring from a fucking empty cup.
Definitely.
So that's been a real priority that I'm continuing to integrate into my life. So from your perspective, like what has been your experience with that?
Don't look at selfish being a bad thing. The best way to be selfless in life is to be selfish.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've learned is that if I never put myself first before anything, like honestly, I put myself first before mental health experience, before my podcast, even before my relationship with my partner.
Yeah.
I always put myself first, no matter what. Everything else comes second. Doesn't mean it's not a priority. It just means that the main priority is the vessel, which is me, that's driving through life. As long as I put myself first and make sure I'm doing the things to look after myself, everything else will get watered after it. But if I'm not watering myself and everything else gets watered, this patch of grass is going to die. And that patch of grass is the main force of everything around it. So then I realized I need to be selfish and then be able to communicate my selfishness to other people that may not understand it. So then they can get an understanding of the things that I'm doing, and then they can respect. And like, so I use my missus for an example. When I first met her, I said to her, look, I've always got to put myself first in terms of self-care and look after myself. And I promise you, I'll give you the best version of myself all the time. She said, cool, I respect it. And then every single day I put myself first, and it just like, it's like, well, perception is projection. So everything I do within myself ends up becoming a projection for my external. So that's why it's important to be selfish, so you can be more selfless.
Yeah. Beautifully said, bro. I love that.
Thank you.
Just mic drop that one.
Boom.
Love it. No, and I'm sure there's many people who need to hear that. You know, it's so true and so needed. So
Yeah, because I think a lot of people can think like, I think probably not everyone's heard this, like, oh, you're just selfish. That's why you do this, or that's why you do that. And it's like, and then people start feeling attacked by when people call them selfish. Then they start getting conflicted in their mind about being selfish, and they stop doing things for themselves, and they become people pleasers. And then you can also become a victim in that sense too. But you just gotta think more so of like, if I'm not selfish to myself, I'm not going to be selfless and serve other people, no matter what their service is. So I always bring the focus back to yourself in moments. Like, I have moments where I can feel a deep urge to meditate. Like, I'll be sitting at work, I'll be sitting with my partner watching a movie, and I can feel a pull within me that's like, go and listen to some high frequency sounds for 10 minutes. I'm like, cool, whatever I'm doing, I drop, I get up and go do it. So I make sure I listen to my body and put myself first.
Yeah. Your body always knows. Like, I've really learned that lesson this year. You know, like for me, after this, and then after I jump on a call after this, I am doing sweet FA, and I'm going to enjoy every fucking minute of it. You know? And
That's good.
Yeah, and it's so important. I think it was so interesting. We were holding accountability or whatever at one of the masterminds, and you were like checking in, hold me accountable. Hey, bro, are you doing nothing? And it was so good, you know, and it's so needed. And you're allowed to do that. And
you're allowed to, exactly. And like, listen to your body when it tells you stuff, because what is suppressed becomes expressed. So the more you push stuff down, it's going to come out. So just be conscious of that. And just, who cares if someone gets offended because you want to look after yourself and make sure that you are happy and at peace and feeling joy and enlightenment. Like, just communicate with people and let them know if they do feel offended. But at the end of the day, like I said, be selfish to be selfless.
That's it. The most important relationship is the one with yourself, and what people think of you is none of your business.
Exactly.
So, love it, bro. Well, man, thank you so much for jumping on. It's been an honor to have you here. And where can everyone find you? Like, if they want to find you, I'll obviously link all the stuff below, but where can they find you?
Mental Health Experience on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all those 4. And then One Talk Podcast, that's my podcast on like Spotify, Apple, all the streaming services. But if you just go on Mental Health Experience, you'll find everything, and it's all there. So any up and coming events, everything's always on Mental Health Experience. So just head over there.
Beautiful, man. Love it. And I'll link all that below, guys, if you want to figure that out. But as I said, bro, man, it's been an honor to have you on. Super excited to man, what are this friendship and relationship and man, super keen to catch up some more and maybe do some collabs and stuff like that.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you having me on. And like I said at the start of the podcast too, I appreciate all the work you're doing. Like, it's very needed to especially have spaces out there for men where they feel safe and have communities. And also the next Merseyside derby, I'll have you around.
Done deal, man. Done deal. All right, bro. Well, man, thank you for jumping on. Thanks, guys, for listening. And if you want to check out our new website as well, please go below, check that out. If you feel called to work with Brotherhood and be around amazing individuals like myself and Ryan here, and continue to grow and expand on your mission, please feel free to reach out. But go on an amazing time, guys. Make sure to check out Ryan, go and listen to his podcast, and we'll speak soon.